Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making Le Male by Jean-Paul Gaultier. Actually, we're making Le Male by Francis Kurkdjian, released by Jean-Paul Gaultier in 1995. And the story is, he was a young perfumer at the time, up and coming, and this submission was a real game changer from what was out in the market at the time. Very different style, and it turned into a banger. Turned into an absolute hit. This formula is relatively simple. It's pretty straightforward, and it's very, 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 very close, if not spot on, to the original Le Male. Let's get started. Now, this fragrance is a fougere. It's a variation on a fougere. It's because it's very sweet. There's vanilla, sandalwood, some wonderful musks in here. So we're going to start with the fougere core. Coumarin, lavender and Lavandin, I apologize, and Bergamot. Now there is no Veramoss, there's no oak moss in this, but the Coumarin should do okay. So let's get this started. This is a fresh dilution. Let's make sure we are not fully. Let me put this on the nuclear reactor for a minute. See if I can get these coumarin crystals to fully dissolve. We can start with the lavender and Lavandin. For this particular formula, there's not much lavender and Lavandin. If you don't have, you can use whatever lavender you want. Hungarian, Bulgarian, Spanish lavender, French lavender, United States lavender, kind of doesn't matter. There's just not much. I am using, in this formula, Hungarian lavender. Because why not? This lavender is going to get bolstered by Lavandin, some Linalool and Linalyl Acetate, but we have real lavender in here. Next up, Lavandin. This is Lavandin oil, not absolute, Lavandin oil. Twice as much Lavandin as there is lavender in this formula. I do enjoy Lavandin. It's a little sweeter and a little dirtier to my nose than lavender. Let's see how we're doing. We are almost there. Just needs a little heat and a little agitation. Next up, let's do our bergamot. I'm going to add the citral while we're at it. There's not much of either of these. There is just almost 5/100ths of a gram of bergamot. Yeah. 4 drops and a splash of bergamot. Let's add our citral right now. Citral is a little warmer. You could almost put this in the floral section, but it is citrusy. That's too much. It is citrusy. It's a little sweet. To me, it's a lot like Pez. It's fuzzy. It's fuzzy in my nose. All right, Coumarin. How are we doing? All right. Good. We are good. So let's add our Coumarin. 0.72 grams. 6% of the juice here is Coumarin. We're good. Coumarin is one of those required materials if you're just getting started in perfumery. All right. So we have our fougere base, sans oak moss, but that's okay. Let's give it a dip. We'll let it relax. Then we're going to move on to our aromatics. Okay, to start, let's start with spearmint. A very small amount of spearmint. It's a little warmer than peppermint, but still has that very nice minty aspect to it. Now, interestingly, on Fragrantica, it lists spearmint as a note, but there's such a little amount of spearmint. I'm surprised anyone could call it out. Next up, Triplal. This Triplal is at 1%. There is just a splash of Triplal in this. And Triplal in general is very strong, and it can be used in trace amounts to just give a little bit of green to floral notes. Come on. Green to floral notes, other aromatic notes, herbal notes. Can add a really nice touch. Continuing on, we're hustling through this. Armoise, mugwort / artemisia. This is a strong material, and it is wonderful. It's herbal, it's aromatic, it's fresh. It's got a fresh top to it, almost like camphorous. But there's a thujone effect in it as well. Oh, did one extra drop, but no, that's okay. That is okay. There's a thujonic effect that gives it a very nice center to that material. And I found in formulas it helps center things, or it helps give body and fullness to the middle of the fragrance. Next up, Dihydro Myrcenol, the king ingredient of men's fresh fragrances in the 80s and 90s. Almost 7% of the juice is dihydromyrcenol. Perfect. Perfect. Dihydromyrcenol, another material to get if you're just starting in perfumery, especially if you're focusing on men's fragrances. Next up, Linalyl Acetate. While we're at it, I'm going to add the linalool. I have linalool classified as a floral, but because there's so much overlap with linalool, Linalyl Acetate, Lavender, Lavandin, I'm going to group them all together. So let's do our Linalyl Acetate. It's fresh and floral and a little metallic, just like linalool. But it has that acetic vibe to it, like virtually all acetates do. Let's just get our linalool out of the way. Equal parts linalool, Linalyl Acetate. Linalool is a bit cleaner than Linalyl Acetate. Still metallic and fresh. And you can add a fair bit to a formula without messing up your formula. There's a wiggle room in the dosage. Unlike Armoise, There's not as much wiggle room in the mugwort or artemisia, whatever you want to call it. Okay, we've got 3 more materials we're going to do here in this round. White thyme. If you don't have white thyme, use red thyme. White thyme, I think, is a little bit cleaner. Little bit cleaner. There's only a splash in this. Or if you happen to have thymol crystals, you know, you can use some thymol. See if that'll work. Nope. One more. All right. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Bornyl Acetate. This is interesting. It's balsamic, but there's an edge to it. It's acidic, just like Linalyl Acetate, but there's a little edge to the balsamic that gives it a sharpness. Now, I believe the evaporation profile for this is such that you could classify this as a middle note, but the top is so sharp that it just helps give a little zing to the top. Last but not least, we have Allyl Amyl Glycolate, otherwise known as isogalbanate. And this one is a bit tougher to classify. It's fruity, but it's also green. It's a little pineapple-y. How much we have? All right. I'm using a 1% dilution, because if I was using a 10% dilution, I would need to do a half drop or a 1/3 drop, and that's hard to do. So I made a smaller dilution here. Okay, let's give a little mix. We will give it a little dip, and let's evaluate that first fougere accord. Straightforward. Coumarin, lavender, lavandin. Trying to get the bergamot. There was only a little bit of bergamot in there. I think in the future what I'll do is add the bergamot, test it without the bergamot, then give it a try, see if I can pick it out. But that's coumarin, lavandin, and lavender. That's clear call. We'll let the aromatic core relax. And what we're going to do is add our florals and the few spices that there are. So we're going to start with geraniol. There's no geranium in here, but there are geranium notes. There's geraniol. There's Geranyl Acetate. And we're going to use some orange flower absolute. All right, geraniol. Only a couple drops of this. Couple drops in a splash. Geranyl Acetate. Even less Geranyl Acetate, boy. All right, fair enough. Oh, gonna have to make another dilution soon. But there's only 1 drop of Geranyl Acetate. I think I had too much coffee this morning. I'm having a hard time getting my fingers to control the drops consistently and steadily. Okay. Next up we have Orange Flower Absolute, otherwise known as Orange Blossom Absolute, otherwise known as Fleur d'Oranger. If you are French, forgive me. Forgive my pronunciation. Orange Flower Absolute, check out this color as I'm dropping it in. It's beautiful. If you don't have Orange Flower Absolute, use neroli. If you don't have neroli, use petitgrain. Petitgrain will be fine. For our purposes, and just whipping this up, petitgrain will be fine. If you don't have that, if you don't have petitgrain, I would urge you to create an accord. Google a formula for a petitgrain accord or a neroli accord and, whip it up. Okay, give a little shake. We will dip let it relax as we evaluate the aromatic one beneath it. So here we have our Fougere base, and we have all of our aromatics. So the Dihydro Myrcenol is coming in strong. But the Armoise and the Spearmint. Ooh, Spearmint adds a little freshness. The Armoise does help center it. And the Linalyl Acetate and Linalool, I give it a nice metallic sheen to it. That's great. That's fantastic. We'll let our florals relax. Next up, I want to add other floral materials, but floral of a different nature. Methyl Ionone Gamma, otherwise known as alpha isomethylionone. Alpha isomethylionone. And then we're going to add our Lily of the Valley materials, the Lyral and Lilial. So let's start with methyl ionone gamma. I'm expecting to add, for this material, to add another floral note, but floral of a different kind. More violet, bright, little bright, not like bergamot bright, a little more subdued, but bright, clean, clear, straightforward violet note. Now as we add the Lyral and Lilial, I expect these to highlight, essentially highlight the methyl ionone, or at least provide some transparency, some lift, some clarity. And there's a fair bit of these, boy. Okay, we're going 0.5 gram of Lyral. And we will have almost 0.7 gram of Lilial. Lilial, another amazing Lily of the Valley note. It's a bit more watery, a bit more green. Yeah, a bit more green than Lyral, but it's nice and fresh. It's time for another dilution. Make sure I have enough. I think I'll have enough. Come on, baby. Yeah, okay. Yep, just by the hair of my chinny chin. But I need to set this aside, so I'll make another dilution. We'll give it a little, oh, I forgot a few other materials. We'll do those next. Let's do a little stir. You know what? No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to add this right now. We have the Eugenol, cinnamon, and methyl anthranilate. Now, there's not much of any of these in here. These are more colors. Now, the methyl anthranilate, strong as all hell, so you don't need much. But I would imagine this will help liven things up a little bit. Kind of put a party in the bottle. Methyl anthranilate. Oh, yeah, I can smell that. I can smell that right out of the bottle. So, not much in there, but you don't need much. Next up, we have, boy, not even a breath of Eugenol. This is like a breath you'd take at a library. That's how little is in there. Very small breath. All right, just a little bit of Eugenol, and then last up, we're going to do our cinnamon. Cinnamon bark. Just 2 drops of this. I would imagine we're just adding a little bit of warmth to our fougere, to our floral notes. Okay, now we're going to give this a try. Okay, methyl ionone, Lily of the Valley. And let's go back. So on this strip, we have the fougere core, all the aromatics, and then we've added the geranyl acetate, orange flower absolute, Wow. This adds such a nice color to the aromatic notes. The Dihydro Myrcenol is still kicking it though. Dihydro Myrcenol is driving the bus. But the colors we've added warm it up a little bit. Next up, we've got 5 materials which constitute the base. Now, what I'm smelling so far, let's see if our methyl ionone and Lilial is ready to go. Okay. Yeah, so as expected, this adds floral notes of a different color. The methyl anthranilate is shining, and the methyl ionone gamma is creating that straightforward floral through line. The Lilial and the Lyral are very nice. They are adding a little lift, some clarity. They open it up a little bit. They put space in between the molecules. In your nose, they just kind of put space in between everything while allowing it to blend. That's nice, but so far I'm not smelling Le Male. I'm not smelling it. So let's add our base notes. Let's see. I have a suspicion that the Galaxolide and Tonalide together make up almost 50% of the form of the juice. No, Galaxolide 50, so that would be, yeah, about 50% of the juice is going to be in Galaxolide and Tonalide. So I have a suspicion that these are really going to move this into Le Male territory, but let's give this a try. So first up, we're going to do the ISO-E Super. I'm using a different version today. I'm using Sylvamber. Just another version of ISO-E Super with different isomer ratios, but got some of this I'm trying to use up, so okay, wonderful. Sylvamber is very nice. I think so far Timber Silk is my favorite ISO-E Super material, but they're all close enough. You don't, honestly, if you have ISO-E Super, you really don't need to buy the others. At least not if you're starting, not when you're just starting to develop your nose. My nose is certainly still in process. So, Galaxolide. Galaxolide 50. It's a good chunk of change of Galaxolide 50 here in our portfolio, in our formula. All right. Okay, put this down. Tonalide. Fair bit of Tonalide in here. Now I could have just used the Tonalide crystals, but because there's enough, I'm gonna have to make another dilution soon. I just made a new dilution of Tonalide, and I know that I'm gonna have to make another one because the formulas I've been putting together lately use a lot of it. It's a great musk. Tonalide is a fantastic musk. Also known as Fixolide. Tonalide, sometimes you'll see it spelled without the E. It'll look like Tonalide. Also known as musk tetralin. Just in case you see that written somewhere, musk tetralin or Fixolide or Tonalide. It's all Tonalide. Next up, Vanillin. Vanillin might be a nice substitute for the Vermoss in our classic Fougere Accord, the oak moss. Vanillin is it's got a similar vibe as far as it's deep, smooth, it's sweet. Yeah, deep, smooth, and sweet. It might just be a simple replacement. Okay, Vanillin. all done there. Next up, Bacdanol. Bacdanol, a wonderful sandalwood material, absolutely wonderful. It's a sandalwood material where you can actually smell the sandalwood note. There are other sandalwood materials, like, say, is it Sandella or Sandalore? That is a little harder to smell than Bacdanol and Ebonol. Then you have something like Citral, which is also, to my nose, very hard to smell. In fact, I can't smell it. That's how hard it is to smell. I cannot smell Citral. But I've still seen it in formulas, I've still used it, and I just trust that sooner or later my nose is going to pick it up. Because believe it or not, I couldn't smell musk ketone when I first got it. All right, I'm going to let that base relax for a minute. We're going to put in our final 3 materials. Now remember, if you watched the last video, I said it doesn't matter how clean, fresh, wonderful, beautiful your fragrance is. If you don't have a little bit of grit, animalic note, something dirty, something that you wouldn't think belongs in there, if you don't have some of that, it might not work. And this is the same. In Le Male, there are 3. Cumin, Castoreum, and I put aldehyde C-12 MNA. I put this in this category because when I smell this, it's aldehydic, it's waxy, but it reminds me of a grapefruit peel that if you were to smell a grapefruit peel, you would wonder, like, why am I smelling this? Is something's off. I shouldn't be smelling the grapefruit peel from across the room. It's almost like it's trying to, it's just a little funky, but it's dirty. Maybe that's the best way to put it. It's just dirty. So let's do this. Let's start with our aldehyde, the MNA. This is a 1% dilution I'm using here. Good, perfect. Next up, I'm going to use the Castoreum. The formula I found called for Castoreum Jivco. So not Castoreum Absolute, or if you have a Castoreum tincture or whatever you're doing, Castoreum Jivco will be fine. I'm not using Castoreum Jivco though. I'm using an actual Castoreum tincture that I made. It is lovely. Absolutely lovely. Okay, and then last but not least, cumin. Now, when I saw this formula, I noticed the amount of cumin that was written in the formula, and I thought to myself, there's no way in hell there's that much cumin in JPG Le Male. My assumption is they just forgot to put in the formula that the cumin that was added in the formula came at a 10% dilution, 10% concentrate. So I've adjusted the formula to put 10 times less, or 10% of the cumin that the original formula called for. And I must say, I think it's correct. I think there was a typo in the original formula, because adding the cumin that I have here, which I have to double check the amount, adding the cumin that I have here, I can still smell it. It still contributes to the smell, and I can't imagine putting 10 times the amount that I have in here. I think it would just ruin the fragrance. Got one more drop. So that felt like a little win for me, to be able to look at a formula and look at the proportion of cumin in that formula and then think to myself, something's fishy. That doesn't look right. Felt like a win. And then to test it out, because I did make this last week. Actually, I made this earlier this morning, but technical difficulties. So this is the third time I've made this in about 5 days. But yeah, it felt like a win, being able to look at a formula and think to myself, something doesn't look right. I know what this is going to smell like if I put in, you know, almost 1% cumin. It's not going to smell good. Okay. We're going to do some evaluations. Now, let's revisit the florals. We're moving from fougere, the fougere, accord, the aromatics, the red florals. Then we add the methyl ionone and the Lilial, Lyral. Just getting reacquainted. Ooh, the Methyl Anthranilate. Remember that because that's coming through. Still driven by Dihydro Myrcenol. It's a wonderful blend. But remember, this doesn't smell like Le Male. Not even close. Not even close. And all that was left was 7 more ingredients. So we add the base, all of our musks, the isoe super, the sandalwood material. Yeah, and there, okay, there's Le Male. There is Le Male. Sweet, fougere, those musks really, and the vanillin, really add a wonderful base to that aromatic and floral core. And now finally, we have our aldehyde, MNA, castoreum, and cumin. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Funny enough, it adds a little bit of something on top, a nice edge to this beautiful round portfolio. I'm still in work mode. Formula. Oh wow. This is fantastic. Friends, this is a simple formula. This is about spot on with the vintage Le Male. So give this a try. And if you make this, and if you have to make any subs, you know, swap out any materials, put a comment down below and let us know how it went. What does it smell like? Because I'll tell you, as this formula exists right now, this is about spot on. So I'm interested to hear your experience if you swapped anything out, how that might have changed the formula or changed the smell. And if you happen to make this and you have everything, you have all these materials, let us know what you think. Is this close to what you remember this fragrance smelling like? So in any case, thank you for joining, and I'll see you soon.